What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Heinous Beliefs. I'm your host, Ria, and this is a podcast where I tell you about some of the darkest, wildest crimes tied to belief systems. Can y'all believe we're on episode 3? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually recording my third episode right now. By the time this episode is out, I think I should be recording episode 6. I'm so excited, y'all. I'm so excited for this journey that I've started, and I really do hope that I can bring y'all with me. I can't get y'all on the Discord just yet because I need 1,000 listens so you guys can, subscribe and get the link to the Discord. But for now, if you have some other suggestions that you would like to share with me or some cases you would like for me to look into, there is an email in the description. When you look on the show notes of whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, there should be an email on there where you can reach me if you have some questions or even case suggestions. Again, y'all, I really appreciate y'all. Thank you for all the support so far. The support is definitely keeping me motivated. So I hope y'all are enjoying the episode so far. If you're new here, welcome to the family. I really do appreciate you for tuning in. I do suggest that you go back and listen to the other episodes. I have 2 episodes already uploaded before this one. So make sure you're catching up with the podcast and listening to all the episodes. But if you've been here since episode 1, hello, how are you? How's your day going? Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for coming back. You are greatly appreciated. All right, I'm done yapping, y'all. I'm just wanting to share how grateful I am to you guys. I got to 62 listens yesterday. I really am appreciative of you guys, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I know I keep repeating myself, but that's something that you're going to get to know about me. I repeat myself a lot when I really feel passionate about something. So yeah. All right, let's get into today's episode. We're talking about a Japanese death cult called Shinrikyo. You guys, this episode has a lot of Japanese words that I'm not going to be able to say, so please don't hold me to it, okay? I'm not going to be able to say these words the right way, but I'm going to try my best, okay? This was a cult that went from preaching spirituality to unleashing terror on a massive scale. This isn't just a story about crime, it's about beliefs, fear, and power colliding to create one of the worst domestic terrorist attacks in Japan's history. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, whatever you need. Let's get into it. Let's take it all the way back to the 1950s. Picture a little boy named Chizao Masamoto. He was born in a small, poor village in Japan to a family that made tatami mats. These mats are traditional Japanese floor coverings made from straws, and they are a staple in Japanese homes. They are supposed to represent comfort and structure in the living space. So making them is not a very easy task, okay? You have to be careful and crafty to make these mats, but they were not bringing in any money. Chizao was one of 7 children and money was tight. To make things worse, he was partially blind due to a condition he was born with. He couldn't see out of one eye and he had limited vision on the other eye. Now, you'd think people might show him some kind of sympathy, but nope, life didn't work out for him that way. He got bullied nonstop, and all that hurt, all that anger was stored inside of him. He started to believe that the world was out to get him, and that bitterness stuck with him for a really long time. Chizao went to a school for the blind where he learned acupuncture and traditional medicine. This was a common career path for people with visual impairments in Japan. But here's the thing, Chizao wasn't just about the simple life. This man, he wanted more, okay? He wanted money, he wanted power, he wanted recognition. By 1980s, he was selling fake Chinese medicine and making big promises about miracle cures and all of that, okay? This man was already talking about healing people before he started this cult. But when he got arrested, you would think that would make him stop or come back to his right senses to say, hey, I shouldn't be selling illegal drugs. Maybe I shouldn't be selling these type of drugs to people. By the mid 80s, Chizao Masamoto had transformed himself into Shoko Asahara. He was now a self-proclaimed spiritual leader. Okay. So this man goes from selling drugs to now he's a spiritual leader. And for some reason, he gets followers. People believe this stuff, okay? He didn't just stick to one belief system. Oh no. He mixed Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and even sci-fi even claim that he has supernatural powers and he could even levitate. Okay, he said he could fly. Believe it or not, people ate it up. Like I said earlier, he was very much convincing. He wasn't just selling spirituality, he was selling fear, salvation, and the promise of surviving the end of the world. Now that's how Shinrikyo, meaning supreme truth, was born. But trust me, there was nothing supreme about this cult, okay? At first, Shinrikyo looked like any other New Age group. People meditated, chanted, and read spiritual texts. It seemed harmless until it wasn't. By late 80s, this wasn't just a bunch of people meditating in peace anymore. Asahara had bigger plans. This is his new name. So he's not going by Chizao Masamoto anymore. He's now going by Asahara. And he is the founder of Shinrikyo. All right, so stick with me. He wasn't just recruiting for regular folks looking for the truth or whatever, right? He was pulling in scientists, engineers, and even lawyers. This wasn't just a spiritual group anymore. It was turning into a full-fledged organization. Here's the wild part about it. Joining Shinrikyo was not just about belief, okay? It came with a price, and I mean big money. People gave up their life savings just to be a part of it. Some people paid thousands of dollars for bizarre rituals like drinking Asahara's blood or tea brewed with his hair, okay? These people were, you know what? Again, y'all, I keep saying this. I don't know how the hell people just look. I'm gonna ask me some questions, okay? Why do I need to drink your blood and drink tea brewed with your hair in it? Like his hair. Yeah, you heard me right. He was giving people chunks of his hair to put in their tea and they were drinking it. At what point do people just start to be like, okay, this is weird. This is weird. I shouldn't have to do this for a belief. I shouldn't have to do this for any kind of God. I shouldn't have to do this at all. Like, this is not weird to you that you have to drink another human being's blood? Where is the God? Ugh. Anyway, that wasn't just the only thing. Members had to go through intense initiation rituals that were less about spiritual awakening and more about breaking their will. Imagine sitting in boiling hot baths for hours or being buried underground for days. It wasn't uncommon at all for people to die during these rituals, but then what do they do with these bodies after people die from these rituals? They cremate them. But Asahara wasn't stopping there. He was just preparing his followers for the end of the worst scenario that he was about to bring up. The cult was becoming militarized, stockpiling resources, and they were experimenting with weapons of mass destruction. And the deeper you get into the cult, the harder it was to leave. Members were monitored constantly, and anyone who dared to ask Asahara some questions or even, question his authority were punished in the worst fucking ways, or they just disappeared. They tortured these people or they just killed them. I don't know how people are just sitting there and believing this stuff while people are dying. But baby girl, it's something I cannot explain, because in as much as we have people that, maybe wanted to leave, there were people there that were helping him out to carry out all of these plans. This man is blind. Like, he could, what the fuck he gonna do to you? What is he gonna do to you? He's blind. What fear could you possibly have in a blind man that can't do anything to you? Once you see that he's obviously hurting people, once you see that he's obviously doing things that are harming other people, what the hell are you doing there? Why are you just sitting there doing nothing? Why are you sitting there doing nothing? Because at this point, it's not just random strangers that are being hurt. They're using harmful chemicals to do these experiments, and people are dying in the process. Apart from the torture, apart from the punishment, apart from the initiations that they're doing, right? All these three things are already killing people, right? Then they have experiments that you have to carry out, you have to participate in, and that is also killing people. So again, y'all, it will never make sense to me that people can see stuff like this and still pledge allegiance to a cult. It would never make sense to me. Anyway, by the late 80s, the group had grown to thousands in members. Okay. These people were growing in number. And it wasn't just in Japan, it was worldwide. They had money, they had influence, and they had a leader who claimed to be a reincarnation of not only Buddha, Jesus, and also Shiva. I don't know how you say that name, but yeah, he claimed to be all three of those people in one. And with Asahara's preachings that the world was going to be ending soon, his followers believed that it was their divine mission to ensure that they were on the winning side of the apocalypse. What started off as a spiritual movement was now looking more like the blueprint for something much darker, okay? By the early 90s, Aum Shinrikyo wasn't just about spiritual awakening anymore. It had morphed into a full-blown terror operation. Asahara convinced his people that killing non-believers wasn't just okay, but it was necessary. He was preaching to these people that this act wasn't murder, but it was spiritual salvation. In his warped logic, killing someone who didn't believe in his teachings saved them from getting more bad karma. Like just, how people say, oh, your life is going horrible, or you're going to end up in the bad place if you don't believe what I'm saying, right? It was the worst kind of brainwashing. Meanwhile, the cult started stockpiling weapons and building chemical labs in secret. Okay, these people were not just like a regular small, they just singing in the room. And no, these motherfuckers, they were ready to kill as many people as possible to bring the apocalypse. This is why we don't affirm adults with imaginary friends, right? Because then we don't have people believe in shit like this. Once you shut down the fact that adults are walking around here with imaginary friends, once we're able to address that, maybe, just maybe, we can start seeing the numbers of these kinds of organizations. Maybe we can see a decline on those numbers. Because again, if you continue to affirm adults with imaginary friends, it's not far-fetched that you find other adults that will believe in one other person's imaginary friend, right? Because we all have imaginary friends. So what did your imaginary friend say? Maybe your imaginary friend is smarter than my imaginary friend, so I'm going to follow your imaginary friend. You see how dumb that sounds? Anyway, Shinrikyo wasn't just making chemicals like sarin, they were testing it. Sarin was one of the most prominent chemicals that they used to carry out their killings. First, they experimented on animals, releasing gas in confined areas to see what will happen, but then they didn't stop there. Soon, they moved on to human testing. Now, the members that tried to question Asahara's teachings and tried to leave the cult became test subjects. Okay, they would experiment on people that tried to leave the cult, which is understandable. I get it. I understand why people will have that fear now to not want to leave the church, right? Shinrikyo wasn't just making sarin gas. They were testing it. First, they tested it on animals and then they released it in confined areas to see what would happen. But they didn't stop there. Soon they started to move on to human beings. Members who questioned Asahara's teachings were test subjects. They would experiment on people that just, didn't want to be part of the cult anymore. And again, a lot of those people died. These victims were injected with poisons, exposed to chemical agents, or subjected to just brutal torture in general. Many of those people were killed and their bodies were quietly cremated in the cult's facilities to destroy evidence. This isn't just about spiritual growth anymore, like I told y'all. It was about absolute control and preparing for Asahara's final war. That's what he called it. He called it the final war. This man convinced his followers that a global apocalypse was inevitable and Shinrikyo would be the only group left standing. The cult believed that their divine duty was to help ushering the new era, even if it meant committing horrific crimes to make this happen. They just were not worried about the havoc that they were about to cause. They weren't worried about the tears, the pain that these people were going to go through. They weren't worried about any of that. All they were worried about was the end of the world. world. What's chilling is how organized they were, though. These people were not just a bunch of fanatics out in the wild. They were methodical about what they were doing. They were using advanced technology and scientific experts to create weapons that will cause mass casualties. They even established a facility in Australia where they conducted large scale experiments with chemicals. Reports from neighbors in the area describe a foul smell and mysterious illnesses caused by the cult's activities. By the time Shinrikyo carried out their first attack, it was clear that they weren't just a cult. They were a highly dangerous terrorist organization. They were experimenting and growing stockpile weapons that were all leading to something bigger, this end of the world nonsense that they have going on. Okay. What happened to waiting for the end of the world? Okay. Just be like Christians. Wait for the end of the world. You don't have to now make it happen. Honestly, now the Christians are even trying to make it happen because they done waited for Jesus too long. Okay. Once you wait too long, you start making shit up. That's what I get from this. Anyway, their first major attack happened in June 1994 in a city called Mastamoto. Asahara had beef with some of the judges who were about to rule against him in a lawsuit, and instead of handling it like a normal person, right, like going to court and doing your time, he decided to gas an entire neighborhood. Members of the cult released sarin gas in the middle of the night, hoping to kill the judges. 7 people died and hundreds more were seriously injured. And it's crazy because the police did not link it to Shinrikyo at all. They did not know what happened. They didn't know who put the gas there. So they pretty much went scot-free. Before that, they were experimenting with sarin gas and other chemicals on animals, even their own members. They would lock people in chambers and expose them to different kinds of poisons just to see what would happen. If someone spoke up against the cult, they disappeared the exact same way. People were being killed within the compounds and no one outside of it had any clue what was going on. And these people also had an active plan to create more biological weapons. They attempted to spread anthrax in Tokyo, but luckily their experiment failed. Now let's talk about the day that shook Tokyo to its core. It's March 20th, 1995. During the morning rush hour, the Tokyo subway system is one of the busiest systems in the world, with millions of people commuting every day back and forth. Picture this: office workers in suits, students with their backpacks, families crammed in the train cars, all rushing to start their day. In this crowd, though, there are 5 members of the Aum Shinrikyo cult. Each of them are carrying a plastic bag of liquid sarin. That's the chemical that we talked about earlier that had to be released in small confined spaces so they can see what happened. And a lot of the times they put the deserters, right, the people that wanted to leave the cult, they would put them in this secluded room and release this sarin gas. Now they're taking it out and actually using it on people, quote unquote, non-believers. Each cult member boarded a different subway line so they could pretty much cover more ground. They placed their bags on the floor and they blended in with the crowd. Then, using their umbrellas, they punctured these bags and left the trains, right? Just when the train stopped at the next stop, they just got off, right? They didn't take their bags with them or anything. They punctured the bags and left. And of course, the sarin starts to vaporize and immediately it starts to fill the train with fumes. At first, passengers noticed a strange smell, something sharp. This is how they described the smell at first because they didn't know what it was, right? They described it as something like the smell of paint thinner. But then the burning started. Their eyes started watering, their throats started to tighten, and people started to cough uncontrollably. Within minutes, people started to fall on the floor. Some were convulsing and others were just struggling to breathe. The sarin gas attacks your nervous system, shutting down your vital functions, and it will cause you to feel like you're suffocating from the inside, okay? One of the passengers was able to pull the emergency lever, but the train couldn't stop yet because it was still in the tunnel. Even those who managed to escape when the train eventually stopped were still exposed, and the effect was devastating. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but they weren't able to help everyone. And without protective gear, many of them were exposed to the gas as well. When they tried to help the victims, even some responders collapsed. One of the most horrifying things about this case is how random it was. There was no way to predict how these people would be affected. By the time the sarin gas had died down, 13 people were dead, including the subway worker that tried to clean up the gas. Obviously, they don't know what it is, right? So they're thinking like something spilled and it's just a really strong chemical. So let me just go pick it up. Let me go. Over 5,500 other people were injured, many suffering from long-term nerve damage, blindness, and psychological trauma. A scene full of confusion, fear, and helplessness. This wasn't just Japan's worst domestic terrorism. It was a global wake-up call. The scars that they had still felt today, not just by victims and their families, but also by the entire country. After the attacks, the world finally saw Aum Shinrikyo for what it truly was, a dangerous and highly organized terrorist group hiding behind the guise of a spiritual movement. Police raided the cult's compound. They found stockpiles of sarin gas, the same gas that was used on the subway, chemicals for making more of that sarin gas and other weapons, and blueprints for even bigger attacks. These weren't just idle plans. This was a group actively preparing to escalate their terrorism. And get this, y'all, they found records detailing how they funded their operations by extorting money from their followers, some of whom gave up their life savings to Asahara. Shoko Asahara, aka Chizao Mastamoto, the cult leader, was found hiding in a small secret room in the Aum facilities. Okay, that man was cowarding to the highest motherfucking degree. Okay, he was on some cowardy shit. So many of his other followers had been arrested, including his lieutenants, and many of them who played key roles in orchestrating the Tokyo subway attack. Well, he was looking like he hadn't showered for weeks. His trial lasted 8 years. He was charged with multiple counts of murder, attempted murder, and terrorism. And through 256 court hearings, guess how many words he said in his defense? 0. He said nothing. He didn't want to talk about it. He just, and honestly, I think when these people start cults like this, apart from mental health issues, a lot of them really are not thinking this shit through. So I'm not surprised that he didn't have shit to say, right? Dude just sat there. He just sat there in silence. Some say that he was faking his mental illness, and others say he had completely lost his mind. Either way, in 2018, he was executed along with several other members of the cult. But here's the scary part. Aum Shinrikyo never fully died out. After it was banned, it split into 2 new groups, Aleph and the Circle of Light. They claim that they're not the same, but intelligence agencies know better. These groups are still out here recruiting people and still pushing Asahara's twisted beliefs. So what's the lesson here? Beliefs don't make you a better person. They don't lead to some kind of spiritual awakening or enlightenment or some mystical world somewhere. But what they do is stop people from paying attention to reality. Asahara sold people a dream and they bought it to return to be the chosen ones when the world is over. Like, how conceited do you have to be to think that somehow you can escape the end of the world if you kill other people? Again, y'all, I don't want to do the victim blaming, but the mindset a lot of these people have, even joining the cults in the first place, like, let's not even get to the part where they're starting to get threatened, right? Now your life is being threatened over something that you joined voluntarily, right? All because of belief. All because when people come out here and tell you that they have imaginary friends and they put a cross in front of it, we affirm that shit, right? So obviously there are going to be people out there that, they believe this stuff and they give thousands of dollars to drink someone else's blood and to drink tea brewed with someone else's hair. Yeah. That's what happens when you agree that the spiritual world is real just to affirm your friends and your family members and all that good stuff, right? It keeps pushing this narrative that somehow someone has access to a spiritual world that now they are supposed to share with you. And because you believe that said spiritual world is real, yeah, you are already open for manipulation. You are already vulnerable to these people because once you believe it, what's stopping you from giving your life savings to drink somebody's hair water? I can't be me. Can't be me. It's a hard truth, but it needs to be said. Just because something feels true doesn't mean it's true. And following some self proclaimed prophet who says he has the answers, that's a one-way ticket to losing yourself. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on Heinous Beliefs. If you like this episode, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are following whatever platform you're on. I really do appreciate y'all. Make sure you're following us on the Instagram page because when an episode is posted, so are pictures posted on the Instagram page, so you guys can get a bit of a visual of these characters that we're talking about. Again, y'all, I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you are turning on your notification button on whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing, whatever it is that you need to do. Make sure you're also sharing the podcast with your family members, your friends, whoever else would be interested in listening to this podcast. Y'all, I got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping to get to 1,000 listens soon so we can open up the Discord and get the subscriptions going. But for now, again, y'all, you can message me on the email address that's going to be provided in the description box wherever you're listening. And also, if you have some case suggestions, you can email me and tell me what you think. If it's less than 5 stars for the reviews, that's where your reviews goes. Okay, it goes to the emails, not on the platform. Just hold on to it until it gets to 5 stars. Okay, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate y'all. Have a good rest of your day, your night, your evening, whatever it is. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I'll catch you next week Friday.